Okay, so this is sort of communities of opportunity. So just to make sure you're in the right information session, this is a communities of opportunity RFA, and communities of opportunity is a community-driven initiative that brings residents and neighborhoods, communities, decision makers, and funders together to work towards a collaborative creation of healthy, thriving communities. Communities of Opportunity is working to increase health, social, economic, and racial equity in King County so that all people thrive and prosper regardless of race or place. And the way we do that is through our 4 result areas. We have 4 result areas, and our goal is to work towards that all people in King County are thriving economically, have quality, affordable housing, are connected to community, and are healthy regardless, again, of race or place. And these are the indicators along with our 4 result areas. And there are 3 strategies that Communities of Opportunity implements. The first one is the learning community, and it supports community to engage in shared learning and practice and to innovate solutions. You'll learn a little bit more about learning community when Kalyan speaks. Our institutional policy and systems change strategy works to impact inequities by focusing on root causes. And our community partnerships strategy, and that's the strategy connected to this RFA, provides funding to place or cultural groups to partnerships with the idea that the whole is stronger than the sum of its parts. Okay, Kalyan.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask our colleague Christina to insert the Communities of Opportunity website into the chat box. If you are not currently on our newsletter, you can join our newsletter through the website so you can receive further information about our ongoing opportunities and accomplishments of our COO partners. So the COO learning community is the strategy that really connects all of our work together. It's in terms of our implementation, it's one of our newer strategies that we've been implementing, and we are learning along the way. We're learning with our COO funded partners, but we're also learning with our community, and the COO learning community is the opportunity to really connect ideas, people, and then to build new resources, tools, and models. So the types of experiences and activities that we have under the learning community have active learning components. So we have provided different types of workshops or skill building opportunities where communities, organizations, and individuals are learning together. We also believe that it's in relationship that we'll actually be building further equity. So connection and relationship is vital to all the work we do in learning community. So connections between, again, individuals, people, community, but also sectors. So really looking at how do we bring together philanthropy, public sector, our community-based organizations all together in shared conversation and shared experiences. We have a lot of investment around capacity building, again, at all of the different levels of organizations, individuals, and then our work in partnership. And so really thinking about how do we build leadership and organizations that will continue to build in our communities. And then we recognize that many of the structures and the systems and the tools that we have currently are perpetuating and creating the inequities that we're seeing, and that our communities have been identifying and building solutions to create the equity that we want to see in our communities. And so we always are looking at how can we explore and innovate and create these new new opportunities. They might be grounded in values that we've been carrying with us for a long time, but they sit outside of what we currently see in our mainstream investments of particularly connected to housing or economic development or even organizations. So we have been funding different types of work and convening different types of activities. And here's just some examples of things that we've done recently. So again, we're learning, we're responding to the current context. So we've had to do a lot of shifting, as all of us have, as we've moved to virtual environments. So we partnered with Resource Media to hold a series of communications engagement trainings around virtual meetings and facilitation. We also worked with Cascadia to develop some resources that are available on our website on how to hold virtual meetings and how to make some decisions about what tools that you want to be using. And then we've had group coaching sessions with some of our COO partners. Sarah Tran is the lead capacity building consultant that works with us on our capacity building work. She works with Communities Rise, but also many other consultants and organizations in the community. So you'll see that she partnered with Wendy Watanabe to have a conversation with our funded partners about how they are adjusting and moving through the current context. And back in February, we were really lucky to have a conflict transformation workshop with Ejaris Dixon. She is the founding director of an organization in New York, Vision Change Win. And this workshop explored principles of transformation justice. How do we center our relationships and move through conflict in a way that's generative and that's healing, as we navigate relationship, just thinking about the structures and conditions and the practices that we have. And so we're hoping that we will continue to move some of that work forward around deep partnership work connected to this position that we're talking about today.
Thank you, Kai. Okay, so now we're going to get into the request for application. And so COO seeks an individual, organization, or team to co-design with staff a peer learning group that we're calling Community of Practice. And it's for the leads of our COO partnerships. And COO currently has 9 community partnerships, 6 of which are placed focused partnerships. So we have our Kent Community Development Collaborative. We have partnerships in White Center, the Snoqualmie Valley, A Supportive Community for All, SeaTac Tukwila Coalition, and Rainier Valley partnerships, as well as Africatown Replanting Roots Rebuilding Communities. And then we also have 3 culture communities, and they are Comunidad Latina de Vashon. We also have the Seattle Urban Native Nonprofits, as well as the Transgender Economic Empowerment Coalition. And each of these partnerships has a lead organization whose role is to support the coordination and the coordination of the activities of all partners to convene and strengthen the partnership and manage the deliverables of the COO funded activities. And we are offering up to $50,000 in consultant fees. We wanted to just be clear, the implementation expenses will be available through our COO Learning Committee administrator, and that's Cascadia. And this contract will be for 15 months and will end by the end of 2020. Actually, it should be 2021. And here are the following 5 deliverables. So the first thing is we're wanting someone to co-design this model with us, and then to convene and facilitate. We're hoping at least 8 sessions with our partnership leads, and then to compile research and activities into a handbook that we could use later as we continue to grow and develop our partnerships, and then a written compilation of the learnings and reflection and recommendations on next steps. And then to present the model and approaches and the reflections to COO stakeholders, which could be our governance group, COO staff, and other COO partners. Several activities we imagine will happen with this consultant. Consultant will be in a one-day team building workshop. This is something to really help the consultant understand CO's principles, explore shared values of engagement with community members, and any expectations around we have around working norms for the team. The consultant will be also conducting an assessment of the partnerships to better understand their needs and interests. Again, as we said, they will be researching best practices around partnerships and coalition building, and there might be opportunities for them to identify guest speakers or trainers for a session, depending on what the needs are from the partnerships. Develop agendas and activities for each of the sessions, the 8 sessions we discussed. And again, to work in partnership with our administrator on logistics and planning. And then, as we said, to develop a handbook, a toolkit for CO partners on best practices and activities to build partnerships. And then synthesize reflections and evaluation materials for each session in order to inform the future sessions. And then again, meet with partners and staff to continue to design and implement these activities. And we'd like the consultant to participate in evaluation activities as requested by our COO evaluation team. These are some of the expectations, that the consultant will engage with community members, as we said, and again, be consistent with CO's values and principles, and operate to ensure an anti-racist, culturally relevant, and equitable learning environment. We ask that consultants maintain all work products, including any research study, technical assistance, or other products, and be able to provide these copies to us. And we'd like consultants to be able to meet regularly with CO staff as you work as part of the collaborative consulting team. We have another team, as Kellyanne mentioned, and we'd like this consultant to collaborate with that team, and with the hope of building a shared learning platform to convene cross-sector stakeholders invested in greater racial equity across King County. And as we said, these are the groups that are eligible, but we will only be awarding one contract. And these are the key things that need to be part of your submission when you apply. There is in the RFA, you'll see that there's an RFA cover sheet that needs to be completed. We have narrative questions for you to respond to. We're asking for a maximum of 5 pages. And then there's also a budget template that we'd like you to complete. And all applications go to Chris Diabro at cpress-bsk@kingcounty.gov. And again, due no later than 2 p.m. on Thursday, August 27th. And we'll go over a timeline and also bring up the email address again. And in terms of evaluation, we have the criteria outlined in the RFA in page 11, but we'd like applicants to know that they'll be reviewed and evaluated by a committee of community members and other folks who are working within partnerships. And so, it's important that we represent the folks who are being funded, and as well as the folks that we are serving. All review members will participate in an equity training prior to the selection. So we really want to make sure the people who are sitting reviewing the application bring that approach to how they're reviewing your applications. And applicants may be asked to participate in an interview to gather more information for decision making. And we'll let you know as well if and when an interview will be required. So these are some key timelines, and I highlighted 2 that I think are very critical, because if you don't do those 2, then the other dates don't really matter. So we're open to questions, and at the end, again, I'll reiterate what the email address is, but if you have any questions, you can ask questions now, but after today, all questions need to be submitted to that specific website, and until Tuesday, August 18th, that's next Tuesday. And the RFA again is due Thursday the 27th before 2 p.m. And we ask that if as much as possible, if you could submit it quite before 2, so that just in case there's some glitches, that you don't find yourself being stuck, because we cannot accept any applications that come in after 2 p.m. And around by September 11th, if you will be participating in an interview, you will hear from us. And the plan is to have interviews on September 14th and the 15th. And our plan is also to start the work on October 1st. And when you look at your RFA, you'll see that there are terms and conditions. There are too many to talk about here, but please make sure you read them. Chris Diabro, who is sort of overseeing this contracting process, is very well versed in this. And so if you have specific questions related to that, feel free to ask him. And Chris, is there anything else I should add here?
No, that's great. Just if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I assume all questions are coming at the end, but I'll field some questions here today if anyone has any.
Thank you. And then since things change, we want to just really remind folks that to check the funding opportunity sites for any addendums. If there's a change, if we've revised something, whether it's a date or a requirement, that will be added in the addendum. Also, questions that are asked also will be put in the addendum. And I believe that if you want to sort of get a ping on when changes are made to any of public health's requests for proposals, requests for applications, you can sign up for that listserv. And I believe that that sign up information will be in the chat box. Again, this is, and I remind folks of this because unfortunately, we receive applications and some of these things are missing. And then if they're missing, then the application is complete. So again, make sure that the cover page, the narrative, and the budget template are in the email. Please include them in one message so that they all are together. And again, make sure that they are submitted by 2 p.m. on the 27th. As we said, late submissions will not be accepted.
Melissa, can you go back to that slide just for a moment?
Sure.
I want to speak to a question that's in the chat and something that's left off this page. In the earlier pages, it does state that CV or resume should be included for the lead.
Yes.
And there was a question in the chat of if that the resume or CV counts for the 5-page limit of the narrative. No, it does not count for the 5-page narrative. It is additional. So
Correct.
You'll have attachment 2, which is the response to the narrative, and then you'll also include your resume. So it's not included in one of those attachments. It will just be something that you submit.
Correct. And thanks for that question. That's good clarification in terms of the 5-page limit. Any other questions come in, or are there any other questions now?
There is one question. Do you have to be a COO partner to benefit from this RFA? And Laureen, excuse me if I didn't say your name correctly. I'm assuming that you're asking about who can be in the actual community of practice. And so, Blishta, do you want to speak to that? And if there's any further questions from you, Laureen, you can go ahead and unmute yourself also.
Sure. So for this phase of the project, it is specific to our 9 funded partnerships. And one of the things that we hope is that this consultant will develop a toolkit and other materials that we hope to be able to use and expand to other partners or other folks within the community who are interested in doing this work. But for this specific RFA, it is for our 9 place-based and culture community partnerships.
so clarification, if you are not already in COO, you cannot apply. So if we are right now, go ahead, Bosta.
So there's applying to be a consultant. You don't need to be in COO to be a consultant for this work. You will just be working with funded COO partners as part of the consulting work, but you do not have to be a COO participant, a COO contract. I mean, you can be, it's not connected to any funding or relationship that you have with communities of opportunity.
And there is another question. Is there any flexibility in the timeline? Would it be possible to complete the work in 12 months if possible, or is there a specific milestone in 15 months that you are working towards?
It is definitely something that we can discuss. I mean, we would like a minimum of 8 sessions. And so obviously, if they're done monthly, then you definitely can do 8 sessions within 12 months. What's most important is that the funding needs to be spent by December 30th, 2021. And because there will be no carryover, but we definitely are open to hearing if the work can be done in 12 months. We please feel free to talk about that in your application, and we're happy to look and see if that's something that makes sense to us.
So this is our last, formal slide. So now is the time for questions, either for our COO team or for Chris Diabro, who is here representing our public health contracting. Okay, so one question to clarify, are the 8 sessions to co-create the model, and then after this project, the actual implementation is a separate contract?
Could you repeat the second part of that question?
Yes, so it sounds like, are the 8 sessions to co-create the model, and then after this project, the actual implementation is a separate contract? That is the question.
So the 8 sessions are to work with our 9 partnerships and to provide whatever training, co-learning, or any type of creation of a product that the group decides they would like to have at the end. So it's not, the 8 sessions are not to sort of create the work. It's to actually implement the work that comes out of doing the needs assessment, getting a sense of what the needs are from our partners, and then also any research that you do that you want to incorporate in whatever toolkit or handbook that you develop. And we imagine that handbook, that toolkit would continue to evolve as you have more sessions and as you hear about more of the concerns or issues that the partnerships are having, and then you'd be able to tweak it. And probably by the 8th session, you'd have a somewhat complete toolkit and be able to share that with the partnerships as well as with COO staff. If that's the question that was asked, I hope that's, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. Michael, you can feel free if you have follow-up to also unmute yourself and ask any clarifying questions. Okay, great, thank you. The next question, how would you like team members to show their experience as you only require the CV of the lead?
There are some of the questions within the RFA speaks to experience that you have working with certain communities, both geographic and or cultural. And I imagine this could be the place where you would talk about either it's your agency, your team, and the experience that you bring with it. If it seems really critical to you that you show, if there's like two members of a team and you think it's important to share both CVs, feel free to do so. But you can also describe the team within the proposal, within the narrative.
Caroline, would you do me a favor and read this next question? I am writing some notes from our other questions.
No problem. There is a question in the chat that says, on the announcement email about this RFA, there was a mention about other RFPs that will be released. Do you have an idea of the timeline of that release?
I imagine that they will be released hopefully maybe next week. There was a slight delay. They were all supposed to sort of go out at the same time, but I believe that they should be out either next week or the following week. And Kalyan may have more up-to-date information, or maybe Chris may have more up-to-date information, but that's my understanding.
Sure, I can jump in on that a little bit. There are some reviews of the other RFPs that are being referred to, or RFAs, that are being reviewed by procurement right now. So the timeline is a little up in limbo. The hope was in the next couple of weeks, but we're still waiting to hear back from our partners in procurement when their final review will be done.
Thank you.
And then there's another question in the chat. They say it's an exciting opportunity. Do you have an example from another COO that engaged in a community of practice and created a toolkit that is guiding your vision?
I don't think so. Christina or Kai, can you think of another toolkit that was created?
I think Kai, you can probably speak more to maybe some of the lessons learned with the learning circles, but this is something slightly different in that we're trying to gather general and specific support for our partnerships overall, since they're addressing various issues. So the long answer is we don't have a specific example related to COO.
Which is why the co-creation is so important, because I think it's something that, I mean, we're hoping that we're all going to learn together as we move forward in this work.
There's a few more questions in the chat. Is this more about using the sessions to harvest learning that can then be shared, or about identifying areas where the COO partners feel there is still more learning for this group and are seeking training?
I would say it's a bit of both, because I imagine that the first session will really be a get to know you, and you could spend some of that time talking about, you know, yourself as a consultant, what you bring to the table. Partners can talk about themselves and what their partnerships are about, and what are their concerns and challenges that they're having, and what's really working well they'd like to really expand on. And as you sort of collect information and do research and speak with staff, you too then will start to think about some key workshops or training opportunities that would be helpful to the partnerships, and then you would bring that training. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be you. You could identify a guest trainer, someone who brings a specific set of skills to come and do that training. But we're seeing it as something that's in some ways iterative, that it's just going to evolve as more trainings happen, and maybe more questions will come up and more opportunities for learning will happen.
And I just want to share also about the associated budget. You know, we actually have a pretty decent amount of money put together to support this because we were anticipating that all of this would be held in person. So we did have money for food, for rental expenses, for spaces. We had honorariums and training expenses. So there really is the opportunity to bring in other experts or other people that you work with in the community as well to support the community of practice. It's likely that most of this, though, will be held virtually, so many of those expenses are not needed currently. But we could also think about, like, how could we bring food to people while they're participating, because we definitely want to continue to create community while we're still in our own private homes.
And to add to Bush's comment earlier, so the groups have already shared specific needs and wants that they would love some support on that we could share with you. And so, yeah, definitely an iteration of a little bit of both. So this is to be able to support the group specifically in the work that they're trying to do. And they've identified some things, but there might be some other things that maybe they don't know that then you can provide some support to that. But they're definitely very clear on some things that they want some help with.
There was another question in the chat. Is there permission to use innovative facilitation tools like open space or liberating structures, especially for collecting needs assessment information?
Absolutely. We're hoping that, folks are thinking outside the box. There's no expectation that any consultant use traditional methods in this work. We're hoping that you'll be innovative and that you'll think about the communities that you are working with and what's the best way to engage with them. And if it's not our traditional approach, then that is absolutely, we actually expect that you will come up with ways that make sense for the groups that you'll be working with.
And a few other comments here in the chat. There's a train the trainer aspect, I guess, that would be part of the 8 sessions to transition the learning community to self-leadership. And then a request for further clarification from Christina on what those expressed needs are from the partners.
Great, and then Bush and Kai, if you want to chime in too. So what we heard, some things from the orientation last week that we had with the team is the specific support for a lead in terms of like best practices, tools, communication, how specific tools on how they can support the communication and navigation of like the work. And the team as a whole. They also wanted to learn more about each other so that then they might be able to maybe co-collaborate on some activities, since some things are aligned with each other, but they're maybe working with different communities. And Kai and Bush, if there are other things you all would want to add.
I do think there's been a theme around how the leads can help to deepen relationships amongst the team members. They are often doing, a lot of close work with each other in community, and so they've wanted to create opportunities that aren't just about the work. So how do you build in other relationship building opportunities and being able to really deepen those relationships, as well as navigating conflict and how to have shared practices in your team or in your partnership around how conflict is addressed and worked through.
Those are definitely the top concerns that they have.
And then another question to confirm, there is a separate budget for bringing in trainers. This is not coming out of this budget.
Correct. We're imagining as the consultant goes through this process, and if you identify resources or other materials or information that you think would be critical to move the work forward, that we would engage in a conversation and work with the administrator to see how we can access those resources or those materials. And so we're hoping to keep in communication so we can know what the needs are and see how we can meet them.
I think there was a hand raised by Luz. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and you can speak directly?
I accidentally raised my hand. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. This is John.
Oh,
So my question is there an idea that the learning community is going to continue past the end of next year? And so part of our work in the 8 sessions is to build the skills within their learning community so they can carry on.
so Communities of Opportunity is funded through the Best Thoughts for Kids levy, and that levy ends in December 2021. Best Thoughts for Kids is in the renewal process, and so we're hoping, so the hopeful answer is yes, that we will be able to extend this work and build on this work after 2021, but I think it's going to be contingent on if the levy is renewed.
And thanks for that question, John. As I shared earlier about the learning community, is we really are learning alongside with our consultants and our community. And so my hope would be that if this goes well and we do continue past 2021, that we might be able to hold it again. And it's a community of practice that then is not just for our funded partners, as somebody earlier had asked a question, but it could be something that we could bring it, in non-funded partners, or we could maybe have some cross-sector communities of practice as well. So I think there's lots of ways that this is a pilot and a test for us to be able to think about how we can grow and expand.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat on whether this would be the first time that the 9 partners would be coming together as a community of practice.
The partners have come together for different COO events, but yes, this would be the first time that they would be coming together in this sort of format. And again, it would be the lead or coordinating partners and not necessarily the entire partnership members. And so we anticipate there probably won't be more than 9 people that will be part of this community of practice. There might be 10 or 12 if there are 2 members of the lead or coordinating organization who wants to participate.
And then a question in the chat on, can you share the list of the 9 organizations? I don't see it on the COO site.
Absolutely, they should be on the site, but absolutely we can share that list. I don't know what's the best way to do it. Maybe
Can
it's
you
gonna be
can you add it in the addendum?
in
Put it
the
to the Zoom grants?
absolutely that could be added in the addendum. Yeah, I was going to say we could type it in the chat, but that might take longer than we have time for.
So in the our work section, I just clicked on the link. There is the list of the geographic and cultural communities, although it doesn't have like a specific name. So I just want to confirm if you wanted to know like the names of the partnerships specifically, then that might be slightly different.
Yeah, the partnerships have a name, then there are the different organizations within those partnerships, and so obviously the lead organization, we could provide the link, that name of that lead organization. But if you're asking for the specific names of individuals, I think we can probably look at that later on as we move into maybe doing interviews and making selections.
And then how much do the partners know about this RFP, and what is their level of enthusiasm and capacity for participation?
We've been talking about this with them almost a year now. It's something that we realized was needed, and we were, the plan was to actually start it like in February, and then, life happened, COVID happened. So it's something that they are aware of. They're actually, many of them will be part of the review team. So they'll be reviewing the proposals, so that, we thought it made sense since they would be the ones who would be being the recipient of this work, that they participate in selecting the consultant who would be working with them. And I would say that in terms of level of enthusiasm, it's probably pretty high. In a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's an 8. I think some are a bit cautious in terms of just trying to understand what they can gain from this, and if it's something that they can move forward with in their work. But I think all of them want this, and it's just a matter of to what degree of commitment they have in order to make it happen.
Are the leads feeling overwhelmed?
No more, no more than I guess many, small to medium nonprofits. I think the role of the lead is a unique one. The lead is generally the organization that is contracting directly with COO. They are responsible for ensuring that all the reports are submitted and submitted in a timely manner, that they are convening the partnerships. They are working on developing, sort of pulling all the work plans together from the different members of the partnership. And so I think in some ways that is challenging. And also sometimes they have actually a dual role where they are both doing convening, and some of them also have a project within the partnership that they are working on. And, and sometimes that makes the process a bit more challenging than if the lead organization is only taking the role as sort of convener. So I don't know if my other colleagues have thoughts on that, but that's kind of where I see it. And I can actually say the names of the lead organizations. So for the
Bush, I just added the in the chat the blog post that announced the partnerships with the partnership names and a little description of them. So
perfect. It has the name of the lead organization.
Actually, that may not be the case, but it has the name of the partnership with a summary of the goal of each partnership. It does not have the name of the lead organization.
So for the Rainier Valley Home Site is the lead organization. For White Center, it's White Center CDA. For SeaTac Tukwila, it is Global to Local. For Comunidad de Vashon, it is Latino Community Fund. For SUN, the Seattle Urban Native Nonprofits, it's Potlatch Fund. For TEAC, Transgender Economic Empowerment Coalition, it's Ingersoll Gender Center. What am I missing? For Kent, it's Community Network Council. For Snoqualmie Valley, it is Hope Link. And
Africatown?
Africatown, it's Umoja Peace Center. I think we got them all. I think that was all 9.
I realized that I forgot to add a slide per the suggestion of Christina about the payment structure for this contract. So it is $50,000 for the staff or consulting fees, and it will be deliverable based. And we will be building those deliverables in the contract negotiation period, but it means that there will be payment for components of the work that are completed.
Any other questions coming in? Again, if questions come up later and you thought about something and you didn't get a chance to ask it here, again, please use the email on your screen and send those messages directly to that email. Want to remind everybody again, after today, I cannot respond to any questions. Kalyan cannot respond to any questions, Christina. So no staff person here can respond to questions. And so any questions need to go directly to that email address where your questions then get shared out with the entire group so everybody gets the benefit of the answers to that question. Well, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to reading the applications, and I know that our community partners are as well. So, and thank you for all the great questions that you've had. I'm happy to stay on the line for a couple more minutes if other questions come up. But for those who are ready to go, this sort of concludes the formal, I guess, part of this discussion unless Kalyan or Christina or Chris have anything else you want to add.
No, I'm definitely looking forward to receiving these applications. The learning community is something that is a big idea, and getting more thought partners around the table will really help us to move faster. And so we're really looking forward to seeing the applications and bringing an individual or team on board with us.